Hello, welcome to this YouTube channel and welcome to the discussion on the strange affairs of Robin S. Gangam by the Manipuri poet Robin S. Gangam. In our last lecture, I have discussed about the fundamental basics of the typical temperaments of the poet and the typical conditions of Manipur. Okay, that actually led the poet to think in a different way. So now in this particular discussion, let us begin with the text, that is the strange affairs of Robin S. Gangam. But before going to this particular text, let us consider that why this particular title, that is the strange affairs of Robin S. Gangam, is considered to be strange, as I have discussed in my previous lecture. In the title of the poem, as you can see, the word strange actually underscores the paradoxical form of the message embedded in each word. In the opening lines of the poem, you will find that this particular form of strangeness is being presented by Gangam throughout the poem. So let us begin the poem then. The poem begins in this particular fashion. You see that not once can I say, I am the captain behind this wheel of fire. So fundamentally, as you can find in my last lecture, that there was a particular reference to the socio-political and psychosocial environment of Manipur in the present time politics or the political purview. Now you can identify that the wheel of fire is always present within each and every perspectives of the country, of the state itself. Gangam says, not once can I say I am the captain. Now the question suddenly arises that that the poem actually begins with a mentioning of not. That means somehow you can identify that Gangam is trying to evade or trying to make himself free from any kind of allegation. And what is the allegation that he is stating? That I cannot represent or I cannot become the captain. That means I don't have any controlling power with me. Okay, here you will find that, as I mentioned, he says that the poem begins with not once. It actually shows the poet's inability in controlling whatever is happening around him. The word captain, therefore, refers to his leadership, okay, where the phrase wheel of fire, as you can identify, is related with the pain and suffering and misery and obviously agony one faces. Now somehow if you go with the particular phrase of wheel of fire, certainly you will find that the phrase is used by William Shakespeare in his King Lear. Okay, there in Shakespeare's King Lear, Lear was suffering from the crisis. Okay, uh, and somehow this is a kind of a suffering that was caused by the loss of everything, as you can see. Here, the speaker wants to mean that he is separated from the painstaking lives of his people, but he wanted to lead them in their crisis, but could not in actual. But he could remember the misplacing of the bronze bell that you can identify to be present in the next lines. So that's why it says that not once can I say I am the captain. That means I don't have any controlling power to control the situation, control the scenario where I am in, but I am completely being bound behind this wheel of fire that is ever moving, you see, and you have to face ever that particular crisis and problems that is being associated with this particular wheel of fire. He says, I remember misplacing a bronze bell. So the question is, this misplacing of bronze bell, what does it mean? The bell signifies the conventional norms and regulations of life, which is misplaced by him. And now, in a form of retrospection, you can find he can discover his unattended duties to his family, his people, his state. And that's why you will find in the next few lines this is mentioned as untended hearts, you see. So and can identify a change in him. He says that I remember misplacing a bronze bell. That means the traditional forms of thinking and the ideologies and the patterns of life leading, all these things have been misplaced, you see. That means something is lost, something is being completely misplaced. So there he writes that I remember misplacing a bronze bell somewhere, sometime. So you can find here that Rabin S. Gangam is trying to capture, okay, the spatial, that is SPATIAL, spatial, that is coming from the term space, and temporal dimension. Okay, so somewhere, sometime, with these references of these two particular terms, Gangam is trying to prefigure the spatial dimension. That means it can be identified to be present everywhere, okay, in any particular place, or maybe some time that can also refer to any particular time or historical juncture, or many other things, you see. So I remember misplacing a bronze bell somewhere, sometime. I left behind many untended hearts. So that is the line that I am trying to suggest here. What does it signify, the untended hearts? So you can identify that the hearts generally in the typical Western perspective, hearth is generally being considered as it's a kind of a fireplace, you see, that is present in the colder countries within the rooms, and that can provide you the fire, that can provide you the warmth. So generally, whenever you will find the term hearth is being incorporated in any particular poem, it can signify the typical familial cozy life, or maybe the warmth of relationships that have been there. So he says that I left behind many untended hearths. That means there are ample provisions, there are ample opportunities or reasons where you could uh, say pay some homage or pay some responsibilities regarding your duties and so. And then he says that I left behind many untended hearts, rushing back I discovered. That means in the present scenario, when I look back, when I rush back, I discovered that something had changed me. Now, the question certainly arises, what is that particular thing that has changed him? Is it simply, as we can find in the last poem, that is a poem for mother, there was obviously a particular reference to a kind of a change, a kind of a transformation within him. And there you have found that to some extent the poet was apologizing for such kind of temperamental change. Here you will find that the primary focus has been given with the particular term, something had changed to me. So the question certainly arises, what does the term something is signifying? Is it something referring to the political crisis or the political turmoil where he was in, or rather it is something signifying the changed pattern of life leading, the changed pattern of thinking in this particular format? And you will find certainly that the poem is actually indicating towards the changed mentality of people, whether it is social, whether it is political, or whether it is material, because the term mammon or maybe something related to materialism is always being proceeded in this particular poem through in different sections or different lines. So something had changed me. It is actually indicating towards the psychosocial and and socio-political situations which have been faced by the poets like Gangam. He says that I can say I am this or that I envied the character of water and stone. That means he says that I am this or that. So ultimately, with the use of these particular demonstratives and this and that, you will find it is the non-distinct interpretations that he is trying to propagate here. And then he says that I envied the character, okay, of water and stone. Why he is referring to the term water and stone? You will find that the water has its own fluidity, rather, and the stone, you will find it has its own hardiness. So therefore, he cannot consider the typical fluidity is present in him. He cannot either consider that the typical hardiness of a stone is present in him. Okay, so you can find that in the present scenario, the poet is apologizing for his change. Okay, He's suffering the same thing as we can identify in a poem for Mother by Ngangom. His suffering and inner conflict due to the guilt he faces leads him to envy the character of water and stone because, as I've mentioned, he lacks the fluidity of water and hardiness and firm temperament of a stone in his determination. And then he says that as a boy, I was made a sheep. So ultimately, you will find that the patterns of passivity has been incorporated here. I was made. That means it is not that I was a sheep. Rather, I was made a sheep. So somehow that particular kind of passivity is actually implicating towards the situational crisis and the scenario that had changed the temperament of the poet to that particular form. Why the term sheep is being incorporated here, why the term sheep is being associated with the poet here, you will find that it is actually indicating towards the matter of innocence. You see that ultimately lamb and sheep, as we can find in the typical Western form of writing, these are associated with the form of innocence and form of something related to religion, that is Christianity, where Christ himself called the lamb. So as a boy, I was made a sheep, and now I am enchanted. Look at the term enchanted. So somehow is enchanting him. Something is enchanting him. So now I am enchanted. Again, the matter of passivity is there. Into a goat, okay? That the townspeople, okay, try to identify the differentiation that he is making, because he is coming from the rural background, and now you can find the reference to the townspeople, and you can identify a sheer matter of hierarchization has been incorporated here, where you can identify that the townspeople are to some extent or powerfully they are dominating, they're exploiting the rural backdrop, you see, or the persons who are coming from the rural background. So now I am enchanted into a goat that the townspeople enjoy driving to the square with a marigold garland between my horns. So what does it mean when the marigold garland is being placed between the horns of a goat? Actually, he has to be, or it has to be sent to the altar of sacrifice. You see, that means the goat has to be sacrificed in some time. So ultimately, the situation and the social turbulence that is being pointed out here had made him changed into a mere pet. That means the sheep here, first to a sheep and then to a goat. And ultimately, you can find it is capitalism in the form of the townspeople has hypnotized the wildness in him into a mere scapegoat, rather. You see, the reference to the marigold garland between horns is obviously referring to this impact where the goat is to be sacrificed to the altar of capitalism. So, what are the other things that he is trying to incorporate here in this particular poem? What are the different types of problems that he is facing? It is not only he, but also the other persons who are present in Manipur, the writers and the persons who are advanced thinkers. So we will find it in our next lecture. So today, up to this, thank you.